back to the Daily Grind. Thanks for checking out the channel. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back pickle biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
And Nate Diaz is confirming in a new lengthy statement that Tyron Woodley, the UFC welterweight champion, is next. Holy flying flipping flapjacks. I'm not surprised, motherfuckers. As I said yesterday, Tyron Woodley explained that if he had to bet the house on it, Nate Diaz would be his next opponent 100%, and he sounded pretty confident in that. So now the fight is pretty much announced. It's as official as it's going to get until the UFC themselves announce the fight. Tyron Woodley has explained his decision to pass up the #1 contender Rafael dos Anjos, and Nate Diaz has explained why he's taking a fight versus the welterweight champion rather than like a grudge match versus another lightweight Eddie Alvarez. Both of these guys have losses to Conor McGregor or have recently fought Conor McGregor, as the Nate Diaz loss was kind of questionable. But either way, there was a lot of options for Nate Diaz. This Dana White recently said he's turned down 5 or 6 fights in his weight class. Khabib Nurmagomedov, Tony Ferguson, Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje. There's just been numerous fights. Like, you know, since Nate Diaz made all of that money from Conor McGregor, he's really on his own terms. He's got leverage. So he's like, yeah, I'll fight when I want to fight. And he recently took to Twitter to say, yo, I'm getting sick of waiting. I'm coming back May or June. And the Tyron Woodley title fight is perfect for May or June, as there's a lot of UFC champions already tied up. But let's get into what both of these guys had to say. Nate Diaz, this is what he had at the beginning of his lengthy statement. I'm getting to the point to where I'm sick of not fighting. I'm not getting any younger. I put out that tweet saying I wanted to fight in May or June, but I didn't say who because I was weighing my options. And now Woodley's my best option. I see him on TMZ every week talking about me. I'm like, what the fuck? If that's what you want to do, it's not really my weight class, but I'm with it. I think this is my title we're fighting for. If he's the one calling me out, whose title are we really fighting for? Who's the real champion here? Burning Woodley. But I mean, you know, Nate Diaz has a good point. He's going to get in his shots where he can. He's going to need to get him in before the fight, because I'm telling you right now, yeah, I know Nate Diaz has the cardio with the boxing, but I don't see this fight going too great for Nate Diaz. It's going to be a great fight. Can't wait to watch it. But a lot of people are also calling out Tyron Woodley. Like, why the fuck is this dude fighting a top 10 ranked lightweight instead of a #1 ranked contender? And for those people, I'm going to have to get into you guys at the end of the video. All of the fucking Tyron Woodley's haters, I'm sure. I've already seen some of them start to come out. And, you know, I've started to clip them up in the comments. But it is what it is, man. I get it. You don't like the complaint, so you're complaining about him complaining. I get it. All right, so Tyron Woodley has recently came out and, you know, reacted to fighting Nate Diaz next instead of Rafael dos Anjos. And this is what he had to say. I'm not his friend, family, or anything close. I'm his foe. I could give a care less about his patience. I'll deal with him after I finish my scrap with Nate Diaz. Go fight Queefington if you're impatient or bored. That's a great fight. #1 contender fight. Who gets to fight Woodley next? Colby Covington and Rafael dos Anjos. They're the 2 top contenders right now that are in the closest consideration for a title fight. We all know Colby Covington and his history with Brazil. That UFC 224 is in Brazil. I don't know if Colby Covington's going to be safe enough, or if he's got the stones to go back to Brazil after his most recent incident there. But Colby Covington versus Rafael dos Anjos does make a lot of sense. Nate Diaz himself has spoken to ESPN and talked about why it's Tyron Woodley instead of Eddie Alvarez. He said, hey, I'm not scared of fucking Eddie Alvarez. I'll fight Eddie Alvarez in the bathroom if he wanted to say something, but not on the pay-per-view. He said the time for them to fight was back in 2015, and he holds it against Eddie Alvarez that the fight didn't happen, as Eddie Alvarez and the Diaz brothers had a little bit of history, and the fight didn't happen back then. So Nate's like, you missed your chance, motherfucker. So you can take what you want from that. But hey, Nate Diaz is coming back and fighting at welterweight, and not just any welterweight fight. It's against the UFC champion fucking Tyron Woodley, who's one of the most dominant champions the welterweight division has ever saw. It's out of George St. Pierre and Tyron Woodley, and George St. Pierre recently made a comeback to the sport, and Dana White said he did not want to fight Tyron Woodley for whatever reason. Now, a lot of people say, oh, it's because he's not a draw. It's because he complains. Fuck out of here, dog. You're complaining about him complaining, and now just real quick to all the fucking Tyron Woodley haters that say, yo, why is fucking Tyron Woodley fighting Nate Diaz and not fucking Rafael dos Anjos? Ah! It's because it's the fucking UFC, dog. It's the ultimate fighting circus. Tyron Woodley has been saying for how long? First, he wanted to be the champion. I seen somebody, my boy Bo Archer in the comments was like, yo, how come fucking Colby Covington can't wait for a title shot, but Tyron Woodley waited 18 months? I'll explain why. Tyron Woodley has fought high-level guys his entire career, including in the UFC. Even at Strikeforce, he was knocked out once. I believe he was fighting Nate Marquardt, maybe for the Strikeforce title. He was knocked out in that fight, but if you go watch that fight, Nate Marquardt looked like he was juiced to the motherfucking hair follicles, dog. And it is what it is. That was Strikeforce, and then moved to the UFC. When, yes, Tyron Woodley did wait for the title shot, but he was coming off of a win over Kelvin Gastelum, who missed weight by 10 pounds. Tyron Woodley still won the fight, gave him his money back for missing weight, and said, no, I'm not here for the money. I want the belt. He made it clear he didn't care about the money. He wants the title. After he got the title, he said, now I got the belt, I want to fight for my legacy. Yeah, I can keep beating #1 contenders, but if these #1 contenders aren't legends, I'm not building my legacy. So I want to fight household names like Nate Diaz. He's not taking an easy fight with Nate Diaz. For one, Nate Diaz isn't nobody's fucking easy fight. And for two, Nate Diaz is one of the biggest names in the UFC. He's got a win over Conor McGregor. So that's a huge fight for anybody. Anybody would take the Nate Diaz fight, no matter what, you're a welterweight or a lightweight. So yeah, Tyron Woodley's fighting the household name, and yeah, he might get a lot of money, but he might not. I mean, we'll see how much of a draw Nate Diaz is as far as pay-per-views are concerned without Conor McGregor. I don't know if we've ever saw that before. If it's just Nate Diaz versus Tyron Woodley, do they sell a million pay-per-views? It'll be really interesting to see. We don't know that yet, but we do know Nate Diaz is a household name, and Tyron Woodley wants to fight a household name. And to be fair, also to Tyron, he's been fighting #1 contenders. He fought Wonder Boy twice. Then he went on and fought Damian Maia, beat him, fucked up his shoulder in the fight, and people said it was a boring fight. Doesn't matter, you know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I completely understand where both sides are coming from. Nate Diaz, he's gonna take the biggest fight possible if it's not Conor. And that's just a quick thing. If Nate's gonna be fighting Woodley, that must mean Conor's not coming back in May or June, unless he's fighting Floyd Mayweather sometime this year, which is most realistically. We've seen Floyd Mayweather stepping in MMA octagons and keeping his name relevant in the Conor McGregor circus. And so if Conor McGregor's got the choice, do you want to fight Floyd Mayweather or Nate Diaz? He's probably going to take Floyd Mayweather. And if that is the case, Nate Diaz is going to have to fight somebody. Why not a motherfucking champion? We've got the lightweight belts tied up now. He had that opportunity. But nope, I'm going to go up, fight Tyron Woodley. Nate Diaz doesn't have too much to lose here. If he loses, he lost to the fucking welterweight champion. Pretty much everyone kind of expected it, and it is what it is. He still got a huge fight and a payday. So it is what it is, man. This might be one of the last fights we see from Nate Diaz. As he said, he's getting to the point to where he's sick of not fighting. But at the same time, after he fights Tyron Woodley, unless he becomes a welterweight champion, what is next for Nate Diaz? I mean, Conor McGregor will always be there. We'll see what happens, man. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. I'm out.
Da 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 da. It's the motherfucking DOWG.